Chatturanga, an often misunderstood asana, and an asana that also it's good to like refresh and clean it up from time to time. So even if you think you've got it, keep in mind that your body is changing all the time, your understanding of it is changing all the time. So you want to just clean it up once in a while just to make sure you're not picking up a habit here or there that you're unaware of. So a good chaturanga starts with the best plank pose that you can possibly summon from your practice. So you want to have your wrists under your shoulders, you want to have your arms and your legs straight, and the hips should not be low or high, but just making one long line. Also, some of us may have a habit of sticking the tailbone up. So if you pull the navel in and up slightly, that should minimize some of the arching that could happen. Also, we often have a tendency to let the head go down, maybe because we're trying to see what all is happening down there. But I encourage you to look at least a little bit forward, so the trajectory of the head and the gaze is a bit forward. It might even help to have someone check on you and give you feedback about your plank. So for chaturanga, let's start laying on the back and have your legs strong like Tadasana. So feet are flexing, feet and legs are squeezing together. Have your shoulders moving down your back, navel moving in and up, head is against the floor. So the whole back body is as long as possible. Now, of course, some parts of the back will touch the floor, some parts will move away from the floor, but you want to have as close to a Tadasana as you can. Now, what if we were in plank pose right now? My arms would be parallel to one another and perfectly perpendicular to the floor, or in my case, the ceiling. Hands are extending back with the fingertips, with the fingers slightly separated. Now, observe as you bend the elbows and bring the elbows alongside the body, observe how much further down the body the fingertips are. Let's try it again. Let's see if we can observe. So straighten the elbows out and have the shoulders in line with the wrists, so the arms are perpendicular to the floor. And notice, like, my fingertips are maybe at my eyebrow or third eye. They're pretty far forward. And then as I draw the elbows down and back, the fingertips end up closer to maybe my bra line even. So that is going to give us a sense for how far forward a chaturanga is really. I feel like because we're so focused on having the strength to lower down into it that we often think of it as a lowering down pose, or as a pose that is about our relationship to gravity. But instead, there's actually quite a bit of forward movement in chaturanga. Here's another way to understand that forward movement. You can place a block right in front of where your hands would go for plank and chaturanga. So my fingertips are lightly touching the back edge of my blocks. My arms are straight up and down. From there, I'm gonna set up my best plank pose ever. And then look how far forward I have to carry my chest in order for my shoulders to land right on my blocks. Now I can stay there for a moment because the blocks are catching some of my weight. So I could stay there and have my body try to memorize that shape from inside. Notice too, another way to look at that is I want the forearms to stay vertical to the floor. For example, If I just bend the elbows straight back, then as you can see, my shoulders will never be forward enough to make it to my blocks if I just go straight down. So another way to think about it is to have the elbows over the wrists and to keep the forearms totally vertical to the floor. You can watch my forearms and elbows if you like before you try it. So watch how my elbows stay over my wrists as best as possible as I lift forward and down into chaturanga. Here's another way to go about that. In this variation, I'm gonna put my blocks behind my elbows, and now this time when I go, if I'm tipping my blocks, it means that the elbows are going too far back. So I'm gonna try from my most perfect plank pose ever, I'm gonna try to go forward and down without disturbing my blocks. Whew. This chaturanga stuff isn't easy by any means. Here's another way to work on chaturanga, building strength. Sometimes the strengthening moment comes from actually lifting up into it. So look, place the two blocks, one in front of the other on the second setting. The first block is going to go kind of underneath my hips, nearly to my pubic bone. And then the first block is going to go right under the bra line, sort of at the solar plexus, right where the ribs meet the rest of the abdomen. Then I'm going to place my fingertips so that my fingertips are nearly in line with my bra line. My elbows are bending at 90. I'm going to shrug my shoulders up and back and straighten my legs. I'm going to look a little bit forward. I'm going to hug my abdomen in strong to my body, and I'm going to try to lift 1 millimeter off both blocks. Try to lift the same amount equally off both blocks. Notice at first you might be lifting off one block first and then the other, or vice versa. That one's a little harder for me. Try to lift off both simultaneously and hold. And relax. If you're still building up the strength for chaturanga, less is more. So one thing you can do is set the knees down. So from your plank, instead of just lowering to chaturanga, you could set the knees down, bend the elbows halfway, and then move into your upward dog, picking up the knees again. Another way to work on chaturanga, if you're still building strength for it, is instead of going so far that you can't hold yourself anymore and you end up collapsing down, instead just do less. Only bend the amount that you can bend and still hover the body and move into upward dog, rather than allow yourself to collapse all the way down and then lifting up. One other thing to watch out for, which the block variations that we've just done can really help with, is it's not a great idea to go lower than the blocks and then kind of dip down and scoop back up. That's not terrific on the shoulders. So much better to train yourself to stop right when the upper arm gets in line with the chest. And then notice how the upper arm stays in line with the chest. It didn't move. There wasn't a big swooping action or diving action, and I didn't have to do a bunch of shoulder business. In fact, once the elbow and shoulder were parallel to the side seam of the body, they stayed there the whole time, right? That will protect your shoulders. All right, good luck.